Must-see non-conference games in 2019. All right, it's the last week of March, therefore it's 5 months till we finally see some college football in 2019. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game that we love better than anyone online with the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers as guests, and also analysis from myself as we discuss, debate, and analyze college football. Let's get to the top 10 non-conference games. Here we go. Remember to share the video, subscribe, like, and comment. That helps build the channel. If you have yet to check out the videos, please do so. And then you will certainly want to subscribe, like, comment, and share the videos. Game number 10 for me is Florida and Florida State. This game this year is going to be played in Gainesville. The Gators lead the all-time series 35-26 with 2 ties. They won it in big fashion over that hapless Florida State squad that went 5-7 last year. 41-14 Gators. That was after Florida State won 5 consecutive games. Now, of course, this series was built on Bobby Bowden against Steve Spurrier in the 90s. I tracked 28 consecutive years during the 80s and 90s into the 2000s when Florida and Florida State met 28 consecutive years, 25 times. At least one of them, and usually both of them, were ranked in the top 10 in the nation. 25 of 28 years. That's amazing. Now, by the time this game rolls around, Willie Taggart might be on the hot seat. Coming off, of course, 5-7, Dan Mullen expected to be on his way to capping a 10-plus win season. November 30th, Florida State at Florida, one of the great traditions in college football. All right, at number 9, we've got the greatest cross-country rivalry in college football, maybe the only one that it could be argued on a national scale. This is college football royalty right here, and it means a lot for both programs and should this year. On October 12th, USC goes to Notre Dame. Now, despite the differences between the two squads last year, Notre Dame elevating itself all the way to the college football playoff with an undefeated regular season record, USC mired at 5-7, missed postseason play, so a big discrepancy there. But they met at the Coliseum at the end of the season, and USC stayed within a score and were in the game until the final few minutes. But 2 years ago, when USC won the Pac-12, they went to Notre Dame and got whooped 49-14. Their last trip to South Bend, they've got to go cross-country again. And keep in mind that this is USC's 6th game. Check out the first 5. They could arrive in South Bend hurting, wounded, Clay Helton planted on the hot seat. Their first 5 games are extremely rough. They'll be coming off a date against Washington, the Pac-12 favorite. For Notre Dame, they should be much more well-rested, coming off a date against Bowling Green. It is great brands of college football. If you love the tradition of the game, you got to catch Notre Dame USC, and hopefully it means something in South Bend on October 12th. All right, game number 8 is an interesting matchup. Boise State, Florida State in Jacksonville. Neutral site game, August 31st. Has Willie Taggart fixed the offense with the help of course, Kendall Briles? Now, Willie Taggart started his run at Florida State last year, and in a similar big-time opening matchup at home against Virginia Tech, his offense scored 3 points. Well, we were all lauding Virginia Tech's potential for 2019. They turned out to be a very average squad, and of course, Florida State imploded and were never much better than that. That was against the 99th rated defense in the country, eventually in Virginia Tech. This time, Florida State will face a much better defense in Boise State. All right, Boise State obviously made its name, made its brand, built it based on these kind of marquee matchups and winning their fair share over the last 10 to 15 years over Washington, Washington State, Oregon, Georgia Tech, and Virginia Tech. They must replace Brett Rippon, who threw for over 13,000 yards and 90 touchdowns. It's a 4-man quarterback battle with Boise State right now between the senior Jalen Henderson, you got a redshirt freshman in Riley Smith, and 2 true freshmen battling for the job, Hank Bachmeier and also Caden Bennett. Boise State, Florida State should be an intriguing one on opening weekend, August 31st. All right, we move on to game number 7, and this was a good one last year. Unexpectedly, as Clemson ventured to Texas A&M as a 17-point favorite and squeaked by and survived and skated out of town with a 28-26 win on a failed 2-point conversion. Kellen Mond played out of his mind in the second half. Clemson, of course, started Kelly Bryant. Trevor Lawrence did play some significant time in the game, but Kelly Bryant took home the victory with 205 yards passing. This is a game in which the Aggies bested Clemson in total yardage, 501 to 413, and gained 11 more first downs, 25 to 14. But again, Clemson made the defensive play when it counted and escaped 28 to 26 en route to a national championship. It's Mond and it's Lawrence this time, and replacing Kelly Bryant, of course. And it's Texas A&M at Clemson. Without the friendly confines of Kyle Field, will Texas A&M in its second campaign under Jimbo Fisher be prepared for what awaits them at Clemson on September 7th? Our 7th best game of 2019, non-conference style. It's Texas A&M and Clemson. All right, game number 6, looking forward to on opening weekend as well. We've got Northwestern traveling to Stanford. The two schools signed a home and home. The first one was played way back in 2015. That was Christian McCaffrey and a Stanford team that eventually won the Pac-12, won the Rose Bowl over another Big Ten team, blasting Iowa, finished in the top 5 in the nation. But they lost week 1 at Ryan Field to Northwestern 16-6. That was, ironically, Clayton Thorson's first game as a starter as a freshman at Northwestern. Back in 2015, he went 12 of 24. Now Northwestern is looking to replace him, and of course, 5-star Hunter Johnson, arriving from Clemson, is the guy that's expected to do that. Northwestern at Stanford, our game number 6 of the non-conference games that you need to see in 2019. All right, let's move it on to game number 5. And truly the kickoff classic, and moved by the teams and the networks in really spotlighting this game on what is now week 0. That would be, in addition to Arizona and Hawaii, which people will be mostly ignoring, we finally have a huge matchup to look forward to, and college football on the Power 5 level arriving 1 week sooner. So a little bit of Christmas for us with Miami taking on Florida in Orlando. Of course, I talk to Canes fans all the time. They have a certain level of healthy hate and respect for Florida State, not the same for Florida. And it's basically tied to them believing that Florida has dodged Miami for years. The two teams did hook up in 2013. The Canes won 21-16. The previous matchup was Florida besting Miami and blasting them 26-3 en route to a national championship in 2008. All right. Of course, Miami introduces Manny Diaz. Dan Mullen had his introduction to Florida football as the head coach last year and built a 10-3 team. And the expectations at Florida among the fan base, huge. But this is week 1 or week 0, and it's Miami and Florida as the Canes have dominated this series since the late 70s at 12-4. And we will see these two match up. It's my game number 5 that I need to see, you need to see for 2019 on August 24th, Miami and Florida. All right, game number 4 is the next weekend, the traditional opening weekend. It's played in Dallas, a game that we've been accustomed to seeing two powers get together at Jerry's World. And this year it's Auburn and Oregon in a rematch of the 2010 National Championship game, in which the Tigers won, of course, on a last-second field goal, 22-19. Justin Herbert returns to school. Highly anticipated season for him, in continuing to impress scouts as a top 5 potential NFL draft selection in 2020. Taking on probable first-year starter Bo Nix of Auburn as they sort out their quarterback situation. Of course, in 2018, despite Auburn's 5 losses and a marginal season for Gus Malzahn, it started with a similar matchup against the Pac-12 and the favorite in the conference, Washington. So Auburn won that, and they pretty much bloodied and broke up the Pac-12's shot at a college football playoff and the one resume starter that they had in front of them. Will Auburn do the same to Oregon in the Pac-12 here in 2019? It's the Tigers and the Ducks in Dallas, August 31st. Game number 4 of the non-conference games that you need to see. Game number 3, this is, again, much like Notre Dame and USC, must-see regardless of records because of the tradition-rich fullness of both programs. And when they get together, it is just simply special, and it's typically a great game. Notre Dame at Michigan, not playing at the beginning of the season as they did last year, but playing on October 26th. This was Notre Dame's best win of 2018, and it really vaulted them into the national championship conversation and, of course, eventually to the college football playoff. Brandon Wimbush started and won that game for the Irish. He's off to UCF. Of course, Ian Book firmly entrenched as the starter, and Shea Patterson on the other side with Michigan. Well, at this point in the season, because it's October 26th and not an opener, Jim Harbaugh could be off to a great start, or he could be feeling the heat because Michigan, at this point in the season, would have already had a number of tests in Army, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Penn State. For Notre Dame, they played Georgia, Virginia, and USC prior to meeting Michigan in Ann Arbor on October 26th. Michigan, Notre Dame. All right, we spoke of it just a second ago. Game number 2 of the games that you need to see, I need to see for 2019 would be Notre Dame at Georgia. I was intrigued when the contract was signed and it was announced that these two schools would get together. The first game was not scintillating, but in regards to the competitiveness, it did not disappoint. Georgia brought their fans north. They invaded South Bend. They filled the stadium, and it might have been the difference in a 20-19 win over the Irish, which is, of course, at the time, Georgia was ranked just 15th in the country early in the season. That vaulted them into national championship contention, and, of course, they marched on to the national title game in 2017. This is Notre Dame's next crack at the elite of college football. So when they played Michigan in Game 1, the Wolverines had not ascended into the top 10. Therefore, Notre Dame has lost its last 8 games against top 10 teams, dating to 2 wins against Oklahoma and Michigan State in 2012. Notre Dame and Georgia will be huge. September 14th in Athens, Georgia. All right, game number 1. This was not difficult for me to select because we did see Notre Dame and Georgia, which, again, could be mammoth and should be for both teams. But this one we don't get a chance to see and haven't seen it before, as we have Notre Dame and Georgia 2 years ago. It's LSU and Texas, and the athletes that will be on display in this one for 2 teams, 2 programs that haven't met since 2003. I am just intrigued to see how they come out and face each other with 1 game under their belts. Again, speed and talent all over the place. Both need to find their running games. They're well-stocked at quarterback. Sam Ehlinger may be ready to make a Heisman run. On the other side, Joe Burrow, will he continue to be game manager? Or will he step up and develop into a game changer for LSU this season? Not something that they typically rely on the quarterback position, but to win the SEC Western Division and be a true playoff contender, they probably need that out of one Joe Burrow. LSU, Texas, I can't wait. September 7th, our number 1 game in the top non-conference games of 2019. Need to hear your list now right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, where we discuss, debate, and analyze the game that you love, that I love better than anyone. Please share the video, subscribe, comment, and like the videos. Join me on Patreon as well for exclusive content there starting in April. We'll see you soon with our 10 under-the-radar games, non-conference for 2019.